Hi, it's Todd Partin. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully we'll spend a few minutes together and learn a little something. Today I want to focus on something we don't talk about a great deal, and that is names and the importance of names. We all have a name, and we all like to be called by something. It may not be our given name, it may be a nickname, but even nicknames have meaning. Our given names have meaning. Many of our given names have some kind of family history or some kind of tradition behind those names. And so it's important that we learn other people's names and that we use the name that people prefer to be called by. So today, take just a minute and we're going to talk about how we can get better at remembering names. Now, I encounter folks on a regular basis who tell me that they're really bad at names, and I don't doubt that. I'm sure there are some folks who just have a hard time with names. I'm good at faces, but I'm bad at names. I hear that a good bit. But one of our service standards is that we are going to learn the names of the people around us and use their preferred name. So that means residents, that means other staff members, that means family members. We're going to learn their preferred name and we're going to use it. And so in order to meet that service standard of using other people's names, we've got to get better at names. So the first thing that I want to share with you is that you can get better at names. You can be good at names. When I started in this business, I started at Pinecrest Retirement Community in Lufkin. We had about 250 residents at the time and about 150 to 175 staff members. And so I walk in the door and I've got 400 plus people that I need to learn their names. And so I decided I'm going to get better at names. At that point in time I wasn't good at names. And so I thought I'm going to get better at names. So I spent time talking to people and spent time doing my best to try to associate their face with their name so that when I saw them I could call them by name. And I learned that by practicing I could get better at names. And so I want to get you to stop saying I stink at names or I'm bad at names. And I want you to start saying I'm getting better at names, because with practice we can all get better. The first thing that we have to do, though, if we're going to remember somebody's name, is that we have got to listen when they tell us their name. So if someone comes up to me and they say, "Hey, I'm George," and we'll just use George Costanza. "Hi, I'm Todd Partin, I'm George Costanza." So I've got to now remember that this guy's name is George Costanza. If nothing else, I have to remember his name is George. But if I don't listen to what he told me his name was, as soon as I turn around, I'm going to say, "Oh my God, what did he say his name was? Oh, I can't remember his name." And it wasn't that I can't remember his name, it's that I didn't listen and get it in to begin with. So I always do my best to, when I introduce myself to someone, "Hi, I'm Todd Partin. Hi, I'm George Costanza." George Costanza, good to meet you. And if there's something different about the name, now George Costanza, maybe you use Costanza as the target there, and you say, "Hey, Costanza, is that Italian? What is that?" Just learn a little something about the person's name. So if the name is unusual and you can talk about it a little bit in the context of standing in front of that person, oftentimes you can remember the name down the road. So first of all, we have to listen. The second thing is we need to repeat the name, especially if you're an auditory learner. By repeating that name out loud, it just gives you more of an opportunity to remember it and get it into your database so that you can pull it out down the road when you encounter that person. I'm a visual learner, so I often do my best to picture the name in my head. So if it's George Costanza, I'm going to kind of picture how that's spelled. And if I don't know how to spell Costanza, I'm going to look at George and I'm going to say, "Can you spell Costanza for me? Is that Castenza?" So that I can get a sense as to how it's spelled. The other day I met a resident at one of our communities whose last name was Blau. And so I just asked her, I said, "Is it spelled B-L-A-U? And she said, yes or no. I can't remember exactly, but I was able to remember the name, and the next time I saw her, I was able to remember her name because I had taken the time to say it, repeat it, and then spell it with her. So we're going to say the name back, we're going to picture it in our mind, we're going to have a conversation about the name if that is appropriate. We're not going to do that every time, but really do our best while we're standing there and looking at the person to repeat it maybe more than once so that it becomes more ingrained in our minds as to what that person's name is. Then the other thing a little trick that I do is later in the day, I kind of go through, who did I meet today? Who was it that I met? So I met Miss Blau. I try to picture her face in my mind, and I call her name, even saying it out loud, while I'm thinking of her and picturing her face in my name, in my mind. So George Costanza, later in the day, I met George today, and I remember what he looks like. And just kind of go through a mental exercise of connecting the face to the name. And if I can do that while it's fresh, then usually when I see the person down the road, I can get it. And I tell people, if I get it one time out of the original context of when I learned the name, usually it's in there. And so all of us can be better at names. You just have to take a minute, figure out things that work for you, and do your best to remember people's names. Because remember, one of our service standards is to use other people's preferred name and call them by that name whenever we approach them. We get a lot more from people if we're able to call them by name than if we just say, hey you, or just start a conversation. But if you walk up and say, hey George, how are you doing today? I'm good, how are you? Hey, noticed that over here we need this and this and this done. George much more receptive than if I just walk up and offer him a suggestion or I'll give him a request for something. So, names. Take a few minutes, begin to practice, begin to study, begin to prepare yourself to be better at names, because you can be better at names. Thanks for taking a minute to watch with me and learn a little something, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Go do good, and God bless.